right here at 1 First Street. And I look forward to continuing the fight. Thank you very much.
Joining us next is Dr. Cade Brumley. He currently serves as Louisiana State Superintendent of Education, and he has served Louisiana as a teacher, a coach, a school leader, and a school system leader. Under his bold leadership as Superintendent of Schools, Louisiana has safely reopened schools, accelerated academic recovery, launched a reading revival, and expanded educational freedom. Dr. Brumley.
Good morning. Look, we are here today to rein in abuse of power by a federal agency, to rein in ideological interests that violate the safety and natural order of a civil society. We're here in a stand of solidarity, a stand on the right side of history. For us in the state of Louisiana, these reckless changes to Title IX have drawn a clear line in the sand. For Louisiana, under its own free will, we stand on the side of the First Amendment, on the side of equal opportunity under the law, on the side of common sense. I stand today in opposition to a federal government determined to hijack rights, endanger children, and dismantle long-standing protections for women and girls. Make no mistake, these Title IX changes are a misguided pursuit to shift America from level-headed policies to absurdity. The Louisiana Department of Education joined Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill, here with me today, in a lawsuit against these proposed revisions. I chose to stand for girls and women in our state, as discrimination has no home under my watch. Thankfully, last week, we learned of our victory in federal court. A judge ruled that Louisiana, along with enjoined state partners like Mississippi, Idaho, and Montana, are free to not implement, not enact, or not enforce any manner of these revisions. In condemning the actions of the U.S. Department of Education, the federal judge wrote, quote, "Abuse of power by an administrative agency is a threat to democracy," and we agree. The proposed revisions to Title IX are contrary to a state's sovereignty to self-govern. These revisions are an attempt to supersede Louisiana laws that are already in place. The Women's Safety and Protection Act, that says no governmental agency shall prohibit discrimination between the sexes where biology, safety, and privacy are implicated. The Fairness in Women's Sports Act, which separates athletic competition by biological sex unless co-ed in nature. The Given Name Act, which prohibits school employees from addressing a student other than a name on their birth certificate unless the parent authorizes otherwise, which provides clarity in the classroom. Just days ago, in a separate order, a federal judge in Kentucky penned language noting that there are only two sexes, male and female. If these Title IX changes are enacted, state officials would be required to choose between enforcing their own laws, essentially protecting their own sovereign interests, or violating the federal government's new gender identity mandate in Title IX. This is a clear abuse of power for which we will not stand. Today, we stand resolute in defending states' rights and ensuring that common sense prevails over federal overreach and dogmatic extremes. This is an issue worth the stand.
Rachel Rouleau will be joining us next. She serves as legal counsel for the Center for Conscience Initiatives with Alliance Defending Freedom. She focuses on protecting the conscience rights of individuals forced to compromise their beliefs under threat of fines and punishment. Rachel.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Rouleau, and I'm legal counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. ADF is the world's largest legal organization advancing God's given right to live and speak the truth. We have been at the forefront of standing for the truth that men and women are biologically different. The Biden administration's unlawful attempt to redefine sex in Title IX to include gender identity will gut women's equal opportunities, threaten their safety and fairness, and even eliminate fairness in women's sports. In response to these actions, Alliance Defending Freedom has filed 5 lawsuits against these unlawful changes. We represent school districts, teachers, students, and numerous female athletes in pushing back against these changes. Thankfully, 2 courts have already sided with us in these lawsuits, issuing preliminary injunctions that stop enforcement of this unlawful rule in 10 states. Title IX was enacted in 1972 to ensure that girls have equal opportunities. The Biden administration has made it clear that it will deny girls these opportunities, upend basic fairness, and threaten their safety. Girls deserve their own private spaces. They deserve to enter their own locker rooms and bathrooms without being faced with the frightening reality of having to change in front of or shower next to a male. The government should be protecting the privacy and safety of all students, not undermining it. The Biden administration's unlawful rule prioritizes ideology and tells girls that their privacy and safety do not matter. The administration continues to ignore biological reality, science, and common sense, and women are suffering as a result. Alliance Defending Freedom is proud to defend athletes like Lainey, who is here today and you'll hear from soon. Nobody, not Lainey, not school districts, not teachers, not students, should lose their freedoms because of any unlawful actions by any administration. Thank you.
Joining us next is Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill, who stands at the forefront of the state's legal landscape, wielding her expertise and unwavering dedication to defend the rule of law and protect the rights of the citizens of the state. She previously served as Louisiana Solicitor General, where she spent 6 years defending the state and its laws in some of the most important cases in the country. General Murrill.
Thank you. I want to say that I am grateful to be able to stand here with our Superintendent of Education, Cade Brumley, who partnered with me in filing this lawsuit, and the states who joined me, Mississippi, Idaho, and Montana, to be the first states to challenge this rule. We filed our lawsuit 13 minutes after the rule was published at midnight. One of the things that I keep going back to when I think about some of the most egregious impacts of this rule is not just the fact, which is bad enough, that women have to change and give up their privacy rights, but that they are prohibited from talking about it. They are punished for complaining about it. So these rules do not just expose us to harm in some of our most private spaces, but they prohibit us from talking about it. And this is a rule, this is a law that was passed by Congress that was intended to create a vehicle for us to talk about it, to complain about it, and to get redress for sexual harassment and for other kinds of discrimination against women in educational environments. The rewrite of this rule, the unlawful rewrite of this rule, takes all of those rights away from us. That is why it eviscerates the fundamental purpose of Title IX. So it violates the First Amendment, it violates our privacy rights, and it eviscerates 50 years of one of the most successful laws that has ever been passed by Congress for women. And so I am grateful and proud to be able to say that we obtained the first injunction in the country, shortly followed by that issued to the state of Tennessee and another coalition of states. So I expect many more to follow. I think what's unfortunate is that there will be a number of states who remain unprotected. And so I encourage anyone in those states to reach out to ADF, to other organizations who are willing to fight for them so that they can obtain the same protections that their leaders in those states refuse to provide for them. Thank you, and thank you for being here.
Florida Commissioner of Education Manny Diaz is a lifelong educator and teacher, a former assistant principal, a coach, a social studies teacher, but he's also the COO formerly of Doral College and served the state of Florida as a state senator where he was appointed chairman of the Education Committee. Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you so much. And in 1972, men and women right down the street here came together to pass the Title IX legislation to protect women and girls across this country. Through Title IX, opportunities for women have grown exponentially since 1971, where there were 294,000 girls participating in high school sports and 30,000 women participating in college athletics. In 2019, nearly 3.5 million girls were participating in high school sports, a staggering increase of 1,000%. Unfortunately, since January of 2021, the Biden administration has waged war against women in order to cater to the woke mob. The president, the vice president, and their far-left cronies have attempted to roll back decades of success for women by stripping them of the opportunity to win competitions, opportunity for sports scholarships, and opportunity to safely compete in sports against their female peers, all for the sake of catering to men who decided that they wanted to be women. But there are many female athletes that have been bold in telling their stories, and I commend their bravery. There's some that are with us here today. The hypocrisy of the Biden administration in attempt to dismantle Title IX is that it impacts almost solely felt by young women, taking away their scholarships and championships while men's sports are untouched. Under Joe Biden's new Title IX directive, the term sex will be expanded to include sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, sexual orientation, and gender identity. This completely disregards the biological difference between males and females that was so clearly understood in 1972 and is the truth. While the Biden administration continues to wage war on women, I am proud to have the privilege to work with leaders who are taking a stand and protecting our daughters. Governor DeSantis in Florida and many other principled leaders are fighting every day to preserve the integrity of women's sports, spaces, and opportunities. In Florida, our great governor has signed legislation to protect our young women from discriminatory practices. This includes the Fairness in Sports Act, preserving opportunities for female athletes, House Bill 1521, which provided requirements for use of restrooms and changing facilities to be designated by sex. We have sent a very clear message, and we are proud to join 20 other states that had filed lawsuits to stop this madness. And as you heard last week, a federal judge halted the rule in Louisiana, Idaho, Mississippi, Montana. And this week, a judge halted it in Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Virginia, and West Virginia. We fully expect that the federal court in Alabama will grant the same to several other states, including Florida, in the coming weeks. As a father of 3 young girls, I can confidently say that I will continue to fight the Biden administration's attacks on Title IX and protect Florida's young girls. Thank you very much.
Lainey Armistead is a second-year student at Stetson University College of Law and a former team captain for the West Virginia State University women's soccer team. She's currently a client of Alliance Defending Freedom in a legal challenge against West Virginia's Save Women's Sports Act. If that challenge to the Sports Act is successful, it would undermine women's sports, allowing males who identify as females to compete with girls in sports. Lainey.
Good morning. My name is Lainey Armistead. I was a team captain for the women's soccer team at West Virginia State University, and I'm currently a rising third-year law student at Stetson University. During my time at WVSU, I began to hear stories of women getting sidelined and even getting hurt while competing against men in women's sports, which is no surprise, as males are generally stronger and faster than women and girls. In just the last 3 years, the one male athlete who has been allowed to compete against girls in West Virginia has already displaced nearly 300 girls. And that's just one athlete. So I'm standing here today because I've already seen what happens when males are allowed to compete on women's teams. The Biden administration's attempted redefinition of sex in Title IX disregards women's safety, privacy, and opportunities both on and off the playing field. There is a real human cost to the claim that men can be women. We can't stand by and watch as the government pushes an ideology that turns back the clock on 50 years of progress for women. Progress that women fought hard for, but we will continue fighting for this. Women and girls should know that their privacy and dignity are protected when they enter the locker rooms, restrooms, and hotel rooms. They deserve the fair playing field and respect for privacy that I experienced as a female athlete. Every girl deserves that respect. Thank you.
Paula Scanlon is a former NCAA swimmer and Independent Women's Forum ambassador. She's a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, where she was a member of the women's swim team. Inspired by her fellow female athletes, Paula broke her silence in 2023 on her experience as a teammate of Leah Thomas and the efforts of her college's administration to silence her. Paula.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Paula Scanlon, and I'm an ambassador at the Independent Women's Forum. I'm here today to raise awareness and encourage others to speak out against the new Title IX rules. With the stroke of a pen, President Biden's administration undid 52 years of female progress for fair opportunities, scholarships, spaces, and sports. I know firsthand the dangers of allowing males to take these opportunities from females. And I'm here today to share my personal story to emphasize the importance of equal opportunity for females, especially athletes. I started swimming at a very young age. By age 8, I was swimming competitively. And by late middle school, I was devoting at least 20 hours per week to swimming. I gave up countless Christmas holidays, weekends, and social events to work towards my dream of swimming Division I, a dream that came true when I began swimming for the University of Pennsylvania. While I never became an NCAA champion, I proudly hold the New England Independent School League record in the 400-yard freestyle relay, a record that has stood since March of 2017. In September of 2021, Leah Thomas, formerly Will Thomas, began participating as a member of the Penn women's swim team. On the men's team, Thomas had personal best times in every freestyle event that were faster than women's world records. Once the season began, Thomas was leading the country in multiple events. Thomas then later went on to become an NCAA champion in the 500-yard freestyle, the first champion in our women's team history. Additionally, my teammates and I were forced to undress alongside Leah, a 6'4" tall male, fully intact with male genitalia, not once, not twice, but 18 times per week. Some girls opted to change in the family bathrooms, and others changed in bathroom stalls to avoid undressing next to him. When we tried to voice our concerns to the athletic department, we were told that sharing the locker room was a non-negotiable, and we were offered psychological services. We, the women, were the problem, not the victims, and we were expected to conform, to move over and be quiet, and our feelings didn't matter. These new Title IX rules will result in thousands of female athletes experiencing what I did. These new rules are damaging for so many reasons, but most importantly, words must have meaning. When the Biden administration decided that sex means gender identity, there are consequences. Because of this manipulation of language, women and girls will pay the price. We all know what a woman is, and it's time our laws and politicians do too. Thank you.
Wyoming Superintendent of Public Education, Megan Degenfelder, now joins us. Superintendent Degenfelder previously served as the Chief Policy Officer at the Wyoming Department of Education and was former captain of the women's rugby team at University of Wyoming. Superintendent.
Good morning. We may have to overcome loud noises, but we will never be silenced. My name is Megan Degenfelder, and I'm the elected State Superintendent of Public Instruction for the state of Wyoming. Wyoming, also known as the Equality State, the first state in the country where women were granted the right to vote, the first state where women cast a ballot of their own free will in an election, and the first state in this nation where a woman held the title of governor. I am here today not only to protect the legacy of my state and the people that I represent, but as a sixth-generation Wyomingite, to protect the legacy of my family. I am proud today to speak loudly and to be with my colleagues from across the country as we fight back against President Biden's attempt to fully dismantle Title IX protections for women and girls. And that is why Wyoming joins over half the nation's states in litigating against these rules. Our people have spoken, and they demand we protect their girls. I'm a former high school and college athlete. I played Division I collegiate rugby. Those opportunities made me who I am today. I now am the proud coach of a Division I university women's rugby team. My number one priority is protecting my girls, protecting their physical safety, protecting their access to opportunity in the sport. With the enactment of Title IX in 1972, we opened so many doors for women and girls in this country, not only in sports such as these, but in academic, vocational programs, teaching positions. We must maintain the original intentions of Title IX. This is about safety and fairness for biological girls, and they are counting on us. These rules are yet another example of the Biden administration's gross federal overreach, completely circumventing the legislative process here in DC and disregarding the laws and decisions we are making in our states. We must stand up against these rules with everything they have. They harm our female students. They strip due process from teachers and students. They infringe on religious liberties, and they create unnecessary requirements for our school districts. We cannot stand by as President Biden attempts to take this country back 50 more years. We will continue in our quest to build a more perfect union, and we must protect our girls. Thank you.
Montana Superintendent Elsie Artson joins us next. She is a former public school teacher for 23 years and served in both the Montana State Legislature and Senate. Welcome, Superintendent.
Good morning. So we're going to be really loud here because this is about equality. Yes, we are. Good morning. I'm Elsie Arnson, and I am proud to be Montana's elected state superintendent of our public schools. I have 150,000 students that are counting on us here, not just today, but every single day in Montana and across our nation to protect women, to protect girls, to make sure that we have security in our public school system. I am here with patriots. I am here with other proud state superintendents who have the same voice that I do. Our states and our fellow Americans are tired of the continual attacks on our families and of our rights. President Biden and the U.S. Department of Education's unconstitutional rewrite of Title IX overturns 5 decades of protections, undermines fairness in sports, and increases the risk of discrimination and violence against young women, my grandchildren, your children. The new Title IX is extreme, and its illegal redefinition of biological sex is the real war on real women. In Montana, we saw where the administration's progressive ideology was heading, and we took steps to safeguard our children, our girls. The Montana legislature, who's elected to represent the great people of our state of Montana, passed 2 pieces of legislation in full transparency just a year ago. These bills protect young women and girls and safeguard our students' freedom of speech. First, by defining and clearly defining male and female as 2 and only 2 sexes. Second, by ensuring students cannot be punished by using correct biological pronouns. When the Title IX changes were first proposed, I warned the Biden administration that they were going to force schools to focus on regulating a new definition of harassment instead of allowing schools to focus on education of math and reading and science. Still, this Biden administration ignored the Constitution by attempting to override states' rights and laws that were transparently passed in Montana and in many other states. As state superintendent, I directed Montana schools not to implement the new Title IX rules that will foster more violence and discrimination in our public school system against our young girls. These new rules cannot take effect in August 1, and our states across our nation are making sure of that with court action. Much of today will focus on the threat of the new Title IX rules that are created for our families across our nation and in our state of Montana. However, these rules are a symptom of a larger underlying condition that is facing our nation, our public school system, our families. The federal government is too big, and its far-reaching tentacles are negatively impacting everyday activities that are in our classrooms, in our rural communities in Montana. Even something as simple as our daughters or granddaughters using the bathroom or even competing in sports. Montana has about 50 lawsuits, thank you to our Solicitor General as well as our Attorney General, Austin Knudsen. 50 lawsuits that are pending against the Biden administration. This is not just against the Federal Department of Education, but also against many other bureaucratic agencies burdening hard-working Montanans and Americans. 1,500 pages of top-down federal mandates like these new Title IX rules only serve the special interests of Montana, not our Montana families, not our Montana students, and are not good for America. Thank you.
Dr. Lindsay Burke currently serves as the director of the Center for Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation, where she oversees Heritage's research and policy on issues pertaining to preschool, K through 12, and higher education reform. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. The Biden administration is leveraging one of the most powerful federal laws, twisting it to enforce a cultural ideology on sex and gender onto our schools and our children that is rejected by the vast majority of parents across this country. The Biden administration wants to make biological reality a civil rights violation. The administration wants college boys to be unable to defend themselves against vague accusations with no evidence. These regulations are bad for women, they're bad for men, and they're bad for the truth and the rule of law. These Title IX rewrites, this radical rewrite of Title IX, is why I'm so proud that we have such a strong group of state superintendents, Cade Brumley and Manny Diaz and Megan Degenfelder and Elsie Arnson standing that these states will not comply on behalf of children and families across the country. So thank you for your leadership.
Kimberly Herman is the executive director of Southeast Legal Foundation. Since 2009, since joining SLF, where she is dedicating her legal career to the freedom-based law movement. She advances liberty through litigation in federal and state courts across the country on issues ranging from government overreach to free speech, property rights, and economic liberty. Kim.
Thank you. Teach kids to hate who God made them, to reject the nuclear family, and trust only our government schools. Condition them to believe that our Constitution is hateful and bad, so that they lack an understanding of their constitutional rights and those of their parents. These are some of the unmistakable goals of those putting radical ideologies like queer theory into our nation's schools. Fortunately, the truth always reveals itself. Unfortunately, the Biden administration knows this. That is why the new Title IX rule that we are here talking about today punishes or requires our nation's K through 12 and schools and colleges to punish those who voice their belief in biological sex, who want to use or who refuse to use incorrect pronouns, or who simply say that they do not want to undress, go to the bathroom, or sleep in a room with somebody from the opposite sex. The voices of our students and parents must be heard. That is why Southeastern Legal Foundation filed a lawsuit on behalf of its clients, Moms for Liberty and Young America's Foundation, suing to stop the Biden Title IX rule. These brave parents and students have made it clear that they will be silenced no more. The First Amendment protects your right to speak and your right to not speak. The Biden Title IX rule unconstitutionally compels speech because it will require students to use incorrect pronouns, and it will punish them if they refuse to do so. Similarly, the new Title IX rule unconstitutionally chills speech. Look no further than Tricia, a Moms for Liberty member in Pennsylvania. Her daughters play tennis, and they are required to change in locker rooms with an adult male coach from the other team. If they dare speak up against changing in front of an adult male, they will now be charged with sexual harassment, not him. This is wrong, this is unconstitutional, and together we are stopping it. Already, 2 federal courts have stopped the Biden Title IX rule, and today a federal court in Kansas will hear our lawsuit, and we are confident that he will do the same. As the nation's oldest conservative public interest law firm, we are proud to stand with the hundreds of thousands of members of Moms for Liberty and Young America's Foundation. I will tell you, this is our generation's fight to save the American Republic. When we stop the new Title IX rule from going into effect across the country, we will not only be saving America's schools, but we will be restoring foundational principles of individual liberty and equality. To all the parents out there today watching this, I want to implore you to keep speaking up. Tell your stories. Tell the stories about how the new Title IX rule is affecting your children, how it's silencing them, how it's putting them in physical danger. Because if you reach one other parent or one student, you will have done your part to save our country. Thank you.
Tiffany Justice is a white and now the president of Moms for Liberty.
Good morning. My name is Tiffany Justice. Grassroots organization that is dedicated to unifying, empowering, and protecting parental rights at all others. Thank you to all of the amazing people here today that are fighting for families across the United States. Thank you specifically to Southeastern Legal Foundation and Mountain State Legal Foundation for defending and protecting our moms in this time. Thank you to the 4 amazing, brave moms who are using their own names, unmasked. They're not anonymous. They are standing in defense of their children and in the defense of truth. They refuse to allow the Biden administration to force their children to lie in school. The most profound difference that you can make on this issue truly does happen in your own community. Isn't just a postmodern social justice ideology. It's actively teaching it to kids isn't only objectionable on grounds of political indoctrination, it's downright fraud committed against students who rely on educators to convey the truth. More ABCs and less LGBTs in our public schools. The least interesting thing about a child should be their sexual orientation. With only 1/3 of American children reading on grade level in America's public schools, we must put the focus on increasing academic achievement in our schools so that we can truly unfold the full potential of every child. Parents have the fundamental right to direct the upbringing of their children, but they don't have the right to abuse their children. There is a tidal wave of mounting evidence barreling down on the United States about the very real harms of so-called gender-affirming care. At the very same moment, the Biden administration is shoving gender ideology into every single classroom in America. This must stop. What we have learned at Moms for Liberty is that it isn't that people are unwilling to talk about this issue, it's that sometimes they don't have the words to be able to engage. So let me give you some today. No child is born in the wrong body. There is no right way to be a boy or a girl, and stopping the natural, healthy development of children is bad for them. Shocker. The mental rights. You can ask your friends in your family if they're registered to vote. If they're not, help them get registered. Run for office. And then once you get people elected, support them. They need to know. Talk to your children's teachers. Build that relationship. Ask them how they'll address these issues in the classroom. Ask them if they'll keep secrets from you as a parent. And if they say yes, remove your child from that classroom. For more resources, you can go to momsforliberty.org. Radical activists are trying to use America's public schools to change the culture of our country, and Joe Biden is helping them. Now is the time to stand for children, the truth, and America. It's up to us to stop them. Thank you.
Audience, and I know that there are some here. So if anyone has questions while we still have all of our guests and speakers here, I'm happy to moderate them now. Seeing none, thank you all for joining us today. We've heard a lot about free speech and equality, sex-based rights, parents' rights, freedom of thought. And the stop for many of these cases, we believe, is the building behind us. This is a decision day, and we are likely before too long, I believe, going to see a challenge on one of these cases. But kudos to all the individuals who are strong enough to stand up for the schools within their states, to stand up with other moms, to stand up with other clients. Thank you for what you're doing for the rule of law, and thank you for protecting women and girls. Thanks for joining us today.